So now we're able to upload an image and we get this download URL. The next step now is to store that URL on Firebase, not here with this storage service, because it's now not a file that I want to store. It's instead some user metadata. Because of course, I don't just want to store email password combinations here, but also store extra data like that download URL and soon also a username that belongs to the user. Now at the moment, the only data we're storing is in the end the email and password through that Firebase auth package when calling create user with email and password. But this method doesn't allow us to add any extra parameters. It just wants an email and a password. If we want to store some extra data on Firebase, we have to do that through an extra Firebase service, which we also find in our Firebase project under build. And there, it's either the real-time database, which we used as a dummy backend before in an earlier course section, and we could use it here as well, but we're actually going to use a different product here, the alternative, which we could use instead of the real-time database, and that would be the Firestore database, which is a slightly more complex and more elaborate database solution offered by Firebase. Now in my case here, I'm prompted to go to the Google Cloud Console, but there I actually then can choose switch to native mode. And with that done, I can then reload this page here, this Firestore database page in my Firebase project, to use it from inside Firebase again. Now here we'll then later see any extra data that we store, and that's important, data, not files. Instead, data like the username or a path to the uploaded image that belongs to a user, or later also the chat messages. Because later we're also going to use this Firestore database for storing the chat messages. For the moment, I want to use it to store some extra user data, and for that we need to set it up. And then under rules, I want to make sure that only authenticated users can read and write to that database, just as we did it for the storage service. And indeed here we should edit that rule in a similar way to what we did on the storage service. We should replace false here with request.auth unequal null. That then simply means that only authenticated users can read and write to that database. And we then should also publish that. Now in reality, you might fine-tune these roles a bit more, because at the moment, this rule would imply that every user can read and write any data, including data that belongs to another user, and you might want to prevent that. So therefore, you might want to dive into the official Firebase Firestore security rules to learn more about how those rules can be written and structured and improved, and how you could make sure that users can only read and write their own data. Here, for this app, I'll keep it a bit simpler, also because in this app, you don't really have a way of accessing another user's data, but I wanted to mention that you could consider locking this down a bit more. But here for this demo, this basic check will do, because this check at least ensures that no unauthenticated users can interact with that database. And with that, we got this Cloud Firestore database set up. Now to send requests to it from inside our app, we could again use some REST API provided by Firebase to send HTTP requests manually. But just as we did it with user creation and logging users in and uploading an image, we're not going to do that. Instead, we're going to leverage another Firebase package to make our life a bit easier here. For that, to install that extra package, we should again run flutter pub add, and then the package name is cloud_firestore. That's the official package provided by Firebase to interact with that Firestore database. And with that package installed, we can now use it in our project to send that extra data to Firestore.